So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
Welcome back to another edition of Cal's Corner radio show here in the X Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host. And welcome back. We cover everything from politics to the paranormal here on the show. And yes, folks, it's been about 3 weeks, I think it has been, since we last did an episode, and I apologize for that. I'd like to explain real quickly what had happened. As you know, we do the show weekly. And unless I misunderstand the audience metrics, some of the data I get back from the network, and especially Rob McConnell, as far as I know, people listen mostly to the show, like most of shows like this, whenever they want to. In other words, the world has changed where you have something on TV and it is broadcast live, or it's a recorded show and it's broadcast. That doesn't mean people watch it at that time or listen to it. They listen to it at their convenience. Increasingly, they have recorders and so on. In the case of this show, it's on everything from iTunes to iHeartRadio. Therefore, it's available in a lot of different places, so people listen to it around the world and at their convenience, and God bless them for it. So we were not on the air for 3 weeks, as I recall. One was I got a cold. Yes, my first one in a long, long time, which is ironic since I was in a part of the world where this wasn't supposed to happen. I've been in a lot worse places and had not gotten sick. But anyway, it caught me. And then there was an unfortunate tragedy in Oregon, in Grants Pass, Oregon. There was an accident that involved and unfortunately killed some people that we knew, and one of whom was in the car when my brother was shot. So it was a bit of a personal issue. And although I did not know the individual personally, it happened just before Christmas, and the timing, of course, is never good for something like this, but it did happen. It was in the papers. And I got another description briefly today of what the accident was like. It was described as terrible. And there were 3 tragedies in there. The woman was in critical condition, and then the 2 men had died. And, of course, they were young. And my heart goes out to especially the families. And my brother had found out about it the other day. And, of course, I spoke to my mom about it. And everybody was on their way to celebrate Christmas. And then this happened. And it was another reason why I did not do the show. So I missed the chance to do a end-of-year show, which would have been my first after the 1 year of restarting the show with Rob McConnell when we first broadcast from Dubai, from the United Arab Emirates. That's a pretty good accomplishment, I think, for a Jew like me to broadcast from there. Just do it. But anyway, we did it. It was successful. We did a few broadcasts from there, actually. And, all this time later, I wanted to do a year wrap-up. So let's consider this show to be the year wrap-up for 2018. I understand it's not 2018, but at the end of the show, I will kind of tease you and give you a preview of what you can expect in 2019, much sooner than later, and, of course, in the month of January, which, of course, we will cover on the show and elsewhere. Okay, so let's briefly recap the year as we go out through this show. We must remember that for Americans and for many people in the world, American President Donald Trump started the year with a State of the Union speech that even his most harshest critics had to admit and did admit was excellent. It was awesome. It was, wow, where was this kind of Donald Trump the entire time? This is what maybe theoretically people thought they might be electing but didn't really get, or maybe didn't believe or didn't understand or whatever. And Trump talked about, as he had said before, that he wanted to be the president for all people. And yes, when he wants to, he can sound very elegant in front of the cameras. He is a master showman. He also can sound pretty bad and terrible and like an ass. Let's give him his credit that way too. He's all over the map. He is what he is. Yeah. So he starts this State of the Union speech, this incredible speech. It was one of the best ever given. And it was funny seeing the looks on the faces of people like Nancy Pelosi and all of his harshest critics because, they couldn't dare be seen in front of their base to applaud the good stuff because, Trump's saying good stuff. And, as long as it's Trump and not someone else, you just can't support that, right? It's kind of their equivalent of the nonsense that if you dared to criticize Barack Obama, you were suddenly a racist. Even if you had the same criticism against anybody else who wasn't black, that was different, No, it was just nonsense. It was a way to try to silence critics. So, Nancy Pelosi, she has this face tick issue and slurred speech and things like that she's been doing off and on for years. Ruined her opening speech as Speaker of the House today again. And we're back to this repeat dynamic a year after Trump gave that speech. It's a very different year coming up in 2019 here, and we'll get to that by the end of the show. But about a year ago, Trump gave hope for even his critics. Even CNN commended him, which was shocking, that, hey, maybe this can actually work out. And it didn't work out. In fact, it got worse. Now, who's to blame for this? Who's to blame for the fact that the United States and Europe and much of the world, at least politically where it concerns the United States and issues concerning Donald Trump, the future of America, you name some of the top issues. Are we pulling out of Syria? Yes or no? What about Iran, their nuclear program, etc.? All of these things that are on people's minds, that are causing people to die, massive shifts of wealth and redistribution, military buildups, alliances, you name it, a lot of activity going on, literal change geopolitically, socially around the world, even including balances of power. You have Russia in there, you've got China, of course, you've got us, you've got terrorism, you've got Israel, you've got the Palestinian problem, you name it, a lot of stuff going on. Then, of course, you've got now newly emboldened liberals a year later who made these gains because of the problems and the failures of 2018. In other words, you can, blame Trump for failing to do whatever, fine. He should be blamed for stuff that he failed on. However, Trump is not a king as much as he would like to be. There's a thing behind him that is called the Republican Party. And the Republican Party increasingly is out of touch with the will of the majority of the American people. Now, I've said this before because it's true. In fact, I've never been a Republican. While I do agree with some of their ideas, I would like to consider them not so much as Republican ideas, because they certainly didn't invent them, but how about the right ideas? I think that's the best concept. Who cares what political party came up with whatever concept? So if you look at how most people think, most people I know certainly, and I think this is more or less across the board, more so than not. It certainly is reflected in the opinion and survey polls of Americans and Canadians, Westerners, many Europeans. You see that most people identify with the ideology of the Democrats. And you say, well, wait a minute, how is that possible since Hillary didn't win and nobody really likes Nancy Pelosi except Nancy Pelosi and her, cronies? How could that be? Well, see, they distinguish between the ideas of the Democrats and, characters like Nancy Pelosi, just like you would distinguish, I hope, between someone like Hillary Clinton and the rest of the female population of the world. I at least hope you do. Yeah, they have things in common, but Hillary's Hillary, for better or for worse. So if you look at the ideology that they want to grow the middle class, that they want companies to pay their fair share, they want to protect the environment, they want to go ahead and have not a overzealous national defense, but a reasonable one. Now, I agree that we should have the right defense. They want now free education. They want free health care. They were not that way before. Don't let them con you into thinking they were. It's their fault that Obamacare exists and that it's so screwed up, independent of the damage that Trump has done and the Republicans to undermine it. Now they're saying Medicare for all. Well, they're saying that because they've been a failure at what they tried to do previously, which was basically suck up and, kiss big pharma's you-know-what and take their big money. Remember, during the debate, Hillary Clinton actually said that in one of her appearances that she denied that she ever took money from big oil, from the fossil fuel industry. And the audience was stunned. They confronted her on that, and she said, well, I'll look into it. Well, she lied. She wasn't going to look into anything she already knew about. I'm sure she just couldn't remember those huge checks for hundreds of thousands, actually millions of dollars that she got. Of course she remembered, and she was lying, and she was being typical Hillary. So people are able to distinguish a character like Hillary Clinton from the party itself. And probably the epitome, and if there's any absolute proof to that, it is in the current government of the United States. Look at Donald Trump. He is the head of the Republican Party, but he's not really a Republican. He was an outsider. They didn't want him. But he beat all of the other clowns by a margin of 2-1. Ted Cruz was the best they could do, and don't get me started about Ted, and he was lost by a margin of about 2-1. So Trump, an outsider, running as an outsider, beholden to nobody, beholden to no special interests, blah, blah, blah. He wins. He says stuff that resonates with just enough Americans, including Democrats and people who did support Obama but didn't want to see Hillary in the White House. So they held their nose and voted for Trump, or maybe they enthusiastically voted for Trump. But then Trump gives this big speech full of lofty words. I encourage you to look at it on YouTube, his first State of the Union address. It was a beauty. It was a home run. He was lauded for it. And then what does he do? He just turns around and does exactly the opposite. In fact, not only does he do the opposite, he makes a point to outright crap on it. Let's be honest. And I'd use a much stronger word if this were not a family show. Let's just put it that way. All right. So now you've got Trump, who has made this speech. He already, within probably 10 days at the most, let's be generous, certainly within the following 30 days, he is undermining and doing everything exactly the opposite. He is confrontational. He continues to lie. He sets new records on the lies. I think we'll be back after this break.
Yeah, sorry about the hiccup. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, Keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
It's hard to listen to the news without realizing we're living in volatile, unprecedented times. Yet never has there been such an opportunity to transform the human condition. As old structures fail, where can we find the guidance to co-create a better way? Find Your Path Home is an ever-evolving, leading-edge information, education, and healing resource center designed to support and guide you on your path to unity and enlightenment. Based on sound principles employed by shaman worldwide, we provide techniques that can support you through the current transitions, offering online shamanic classes, international long-distance shamanic healing sessions, complimentary Mission Evolution radio episodes and Stairway to Heaven TV vignettes, seminars, retreats, and much more. All of this can be found on findyourpathhome.com.
Welcome back to the second segment here on Kal's Corner Radio Show here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff and I'm your host, and Rob McConnell is the executive producer. Folks, as you know, every episode we cover everything from politics to the paranormal. This episode, we're reviewing last year, 2018. It is basically the end of the year show, a brief review, and then towards the end of this episode, we'll talk about some of the stuff that is absolutely coming out very shortly in 2019. Now, as we were saying before the first break, the Washington Post has chronicled thousands of thousands, literally, I think it's over 4,000, maybe 6,000. I've lost count. I've kept track, and I've stopped keeping track myself of the number of lies that Donald Trump has told since he's been president. They range from very small ones to just outright fabrications to things that you don't even know where he got it from, like when he claimed that Obama has a big wall around his house. I guess he never saw Obama's house because he doesn't. It's obvious in the photograph that he doesn't. But anyway, remember, this is the president of the United States. So now Trump is undoing what he has promised to do. He has become his own worst enemy again. He's going off on Twitter. Things with North Korea are not panning out like he had promised. In fact, he oversold what was really accomplished. Yes, there were some good things with North Korea. It seems like overall tensions have, been lowered. There's been some military checkpoints that have been removed. There's been landmines removed. There's been some border stuff that has been removed as well. There's been some sites that have been destroyed. But we don't really know going forward what's going to happen. Apparently, according to the North Koreans, a non-starter is to force them to give up their nuclear weapons. So what is the West going to do? What is Trump going to do? They're already a nuclear power, and we can, go ahead and thank Bill Clinton for that. He didn't do anything serious to keep his end of the agreement by giving North Korea the fuel oil that he had promised. He didn't keep that promise. They, of course, were looking for an excuse to break their promise not to develop nuclear weapons. They did when George Bush was president. So both Obama, who did largely nothing, North Korea became its most powerful during Obama's regime, 8 years in power. And then, of course, Trump, who inherited this mess, and in my opinion is over his head where it concerns dealing with North Korea. Because let's be honest, you have to be a pretty clever guy to have the kind of job that the dictator of North Korea holds. You wouldn't be alive today to enjoy whatever it is you do if you weren't at least smarter or more ruthless than your enemies. And Donald Trump, of course, is not a natural-born politician. He doesn't appreciate the fine nuances of politics. It is obvious in the way that he has handled things so far in his exposure with the West and interactions with them that the North Korean leader is actually pretty bright and a pretty smooth operator despite being a ruthless killer. And then, of course, there's China back there pulling the ultimate strings and calling the shots. And, of course, they're making sure that North Korea doesn't do anything that China doesn't want it to do. So you basically get one, you have the other. You cannot at this point in time separate them unless North Korea were to stop one day being communist, and of course China is not going to allow that. And that's the bottom line. And these are the types of reality checks or things that ultimately have to be accounted for. And in the ultimate peace settlement, that ends the war officially, the Korean War between the two Koreas, and does pave the way for any theoretical peace. You have to address the real politic of this, and that is that, North Korea, whether you like it or not, is largely China, communist China's sock puppet. And, of course, it's a very good theater for them to operate in, that and Pakistan, which is what they do. And now, of course, in Africa, China is about to seize a port in Kenya because, of course, the money they loan the Kenyans just can't pay it back. Of course, they knew they couldn't pay it back when they took the money. They just took the money in corruption and, ran and bought whatever and opened up whatever Swiss bank accounts. But now China is going to go ahead and leverage the terms of the loan because they're not getting their money, and they'll just take this port, and it just happens to be strategic, geostrategic. And, of course, it was all a deliberate long march type plan from the beginning, and this is what China has been doing. And this is where what Trump said in 2018 was both revealing and important. You must remember that we were sold the idea initially that things were going to be different with China and Trump, that, Trump would respect China but be tough. He would impose sanctions against them, including trade tariffs. He would act tough across the board. He wanted to level the field. He wanted to fix the trade imbalance. And, of course, China's leader, when he was sworn in as effectively leader for life over there, where the Constitution was rewritten permitting him to do this, the equivalent of being a living god, essentially, but only in communist terminology, he set forth in his speeches, and I remember covering this as a journalist in India, that he did not view the future of China and democracy as the future way of the world. In fact, he felt that the better ways was to do it through a totalitarian capitalistic society, which is what China has become today. In fact, they are the world's largest and most powerful totalitarian capitalistic society. And we'll come back to that in a moment. Now, what is important is that here you have the American president who inherits the mess called China. And he has talked tough to get the office in the White House. He said harsh words against China, yet he has gone over there. He has met with this leadership. He has been wined and dined. He's been taken to the Forbidden City. Ooh, wow. And then he suddenly speaks glowingly of the leader. And then they're back to fighting economically, and now you have a mess on both sides. Now, the economy in China has started to suffer. It's been suffering ever since Trump started in earnest passing sanctions. And there were two key reasons for that. One was nobody knew what the effects of these were going to be. And markets don't like uncertainty. They know markets in general are uncertain by their very dynamic. But at least they try to understand or get a handle on what they think are trends or what they think they can count on, at least for the foreseeable future, whether that be, tomorrow, the next month, next quarter, whatever. In this case, they don't know. They just know that this is going to last a while, that both sides are not blinking because both sides have their chest puffed up, that if the leader of communist China were to blink, it could cost him his post. He might not be the leader for life. He has to look over his back, especially since he had himself declared leader for life. Now you have Trump, who is in over his head internationally anyway. One can never say, even his staunchest defender will never say, that Trump has ever understood international politics from the standpoint that that was always his strength. No, it has not been. He's been wrong on a lot of issues. On the other hand, one of the key reasons he's been right on a lot of issues is because a lot of our leaders have been morons where it concerns handling foreign policy. Look at Syria. Even Obama's staunchest defender has to admit that was a bad call. Now, when I say it was a bad call, I'm being extremely polite. It was one of the stupidest things that I can think of that Barack Obama ever did, that the United States as a country through its president ever did. Why did we want to mess in Syria? Well, as I've explained before on this show and elsewhere as a journalist in writing, in various reporting on it, we decided, as in Obama and Hillary, who was Secretary of the State at the time, to mess in Syria because they had been successful toppling Gaddafi. They had been successful with their idea of promoting regime change. They thought they could, after toppling the leadership in Egypt, where they actually worked with private companies in a top-secret operation that the State Department put together with the CIA. I reported on this before. They actually worked with Pepsi-Cola and Google to use social media and Facebook to stir up unrest in Cairo, Egypt, to oust Hosni Mubarak, who was America's most staunchest ally in the Middle East. And, of course, Obama didn't like him. He didn't like him because he didn't like what Mubarak told Obama, and I've reported on this. He basically told Obama, you're out of your league over here. You don't know what you're doing. You're going on this essentially apology tour, and basically you're going to get your you-know-what handed to you, and how dare you lecture me on how to conduct my affairs in this part of the world when you don't even know what you're talking about. And that's essentially what the two had in an exchange of words between them as far as the bottom line message. And then, of course, Obama comes back to the United States. It's not a coincidence that he then ordered the operation to remove Mubarak because he took it personally. Obama's whatever was offended, in today's vernacular, I guess, people attacked what? The size of Trump's hands. They're still doing that today, just ask the Democratic Party. But only this was a lot more serious. This was getting rid of an ally. And who and what did Obama want to replace our ally with? And our ally wasn't a saint. He was a ruthless dictator. Let's be honest. Well, gee, how about the Muslim Brotherhood? That's a great idea. So guess what, folks? The Muslim Brotherhood ends up ruling Egypt. And, of course, being the Muslim Brotherhood, where they're basically Wahhabis, let's be honest, some of the most radical Muslim ideology out there. It's not a coincidence that Hamas is the military wing of the Muslim Brotherhood. They, of course, take over Egypt with State Department help. By then, John Kerry's in there. He's another winner. And you can see what happened there. Egyptians rose up in record numbers in just a couple of years, ousted the Muslim Brotherhood, and Egypt had not seen such an insurrection since Moses let the Jews out of Egypt. Let's be honest. So that's what happened, and we can thank Obama for that, and that's the mess that Trump inherited. And Trump said, I'm not going to make those same stupid mistakes. We're going to find a solution to this. Well, now, almost a year later, Trump is saying, we're just going to pull out. Well, that's not a solution, folks. That's pulling out. And we did that before. And while it was right to pull out in other past conflicts that we had no business in, like Vietnam, hello, in this case, just like Vietnam, yes, we should pull out. But this time we should have done it differently. We should do it in cooperation with allies so that it is done sanely. But right now there's no evidence that that's going to be the case. And we'll discuss that after this commercial break.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by rel-mar, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to rel-marzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
Welcome to the third segment here on Cal's Corner Radio Show here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host, and the executive producer of the show, once again, is the one and only Rob McConnell. Now, folks, we were talking about the mess in Syria. Again, Trump ran for president on the promise that he would end the affair in Syria, the military conflict, do it the right way. He promised to defeat ISIS, the terrorist group, as well as solve the war in Afghanistan. He's made a lot of lofty promises, of course. So what has happened is he has pulled out of the Iran agreement, which he said he would do. The people who supported the Iran agreement predicted the end of the world. Well, the world is still here. Iran is showing no signs of resuming developing a nuclear weapon in violation of the terms that they had agreed to sign. On the other hand, as I've reported, because it's true, and again, I've covered this from day one, the articles are out there as a matter of record, because the terms of the agreement did not allow all sites to be inspected, the claim that Iran is not cheating on the agreement cannot be made faithfully, meaning it's not a claim that can be made with 100% accuracy. And this is something that people who are supporting the nuclear agreement with Iran refuse to admit. And I've talked to a lot of people, especially online, about this, and once you pin their ears back far enough and put this point in their face, if they're truthful, they'll admit that this is the case. As I exposed in an article I'd written, I had written it, it was an expose of Barack Obama after he gave his speech outlining before the world the terms of the Iranian nuclear agreement. I was reading the terms of the agreement that was handed to us by the White House, and there were some addendum notes as well, and none of what he was saying was in there. And what I wrote about in the article were the following points. Obama said that this was the toughest series of inspections that had ever been imposed on anybody regarding nuclear weapons verifications. That's not true. The weapons inspections that were unleashed against Saddam Hussein were much more severe. Against Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, they were even stronger because Gaddafi gave up everything voluntarily. That's about as strong as it gets. And he did that after Bush invaded Iraq, because his sons had told him, look, if you don't think Bush is not serious, you're not all there upstairs in your head. The father understood. He gave up all his weapons of mass destruction, literally offered them up. That's a matter of record. He worked through Britain's Tony Blair to do it. Case closed. Now, there was the issue of snap inspections. Obama said there are snap inspections. No, they're not. Look it up. A snap inspection means I want to inspect this right now. Snap, snap. Come on. That's where the term comes from. But that's not in the term, that's not in the agreement that Iran agreed to and signed. Instead, if we suspect anything, now we being inspectors, because in the agreement no Americans are allowed to set foot, literally, on Iranian soil. In other words, it says no Americans are allowed to inspect anything. So it's a racist nuclear agreement is what it is. Americans are not allowed. So the non-Americans, the inspectors who work for the UN or whatever, if they suspect anything and they want to inspect weapons site X and Iran says no, they have to then put that request in writing 24 days ahead of time. Now, what kind of snap inspection requires a 24-day advance notice? Only in the mind of Barack Obama and supporters of this agreement would they think that a snap inspection means 24 days advance notice. And let's say Iran says, no, we don't agree. Well, then it goes before a committee of at least 8 different parties at the UN, and they're supposed to agree, at least 4 of them, that Iran is in the wrong and say, shame on you, you have to let us inspect it, or else, and if Iran says, or else what, we're just not going to do it, we're just going to walk away, the agreement says they can do that, no penalty, no harm, no foul. That is literally all there in the agreement. I quoted from it in my reporting. And this is what the experts negotiated. Thanks, John Kerry. Thanks, President Obama. And of course, Iran loves this agreement because it got them a lot of money and they don't have to really give up their nuclear weapons. And then, what about the on-camera monitoring? Well, Obama lied about that. It doesn't exist. The actual cameras that are watching these facilities are not transmitting a live image. Instead, they record an image to a disk. That disk is then given to inspectors who then look at it and say, well, I don't see any evidence of anything going on. Okay, fine, whatever. And they note no evidence of cheating. But they don't write because we're not in a position to really confirm that we don't know there's really cheating going on. We can't really say for sure that there's no cheating going on. They don't even go there. So when I was in Europe, about a little more than a year ago this time, I went ahead and hunted down a simple question, and I ended up writing an article about it. I asked the International Atomic Energy Agency, they're in Vienna, of course, what is the bottom line on Iran? Are they in compliance with the terms of the nuclear agreement, yes or no? Because although they had issued a statement saying they found no evidence that they were not in compliance, the same agency had ordered or requested an emergency meeting, essentially of the Security Council, overseeing the issue, because Iran was not being forthcoming. They were hiding things. They were playing games. Now, if Iran were playing games, they can't be straightforward either. You can't have it both ways. So they admitted that, yes, they had to have the meeting. Iran supposedly got its act together. But what they did admit, which is what I reported in the articles, which is that they're not in a position to say with certainty, they're just not, that Iran has been in compliance. They can say we haven't found any evidence of cheating, but you have to, again, put an asterisk there and read the fine print, because we're not in a position to say that we can prove this. We suspect it, but we don't know. And that's the bottom line. And Trump is saying this agreement is worthless because at the end of the day, they don't give up their weapons. They don't give up their ability to make weapons. And he's right about that. Obama and Kerry liked to talk about the number of centrifuges that Iran would be allowed to keep would be reduced. And that's a good thing. Except, once again, the political doublespeak comes in, the fine print. Obama was a master at this. Iran, yes, they had to give up more of their centrifuges, but they got to replace them with ones that were more efficient, that could produce up to 10 times the enriched uranium with fewer centrifuges. So imagine if you had a Model A car that you're traveling around in, and then all of a sudden you get to do the same traveling in a Porsche. What's going to get you faster to your destination? The Porsches, of course. So here's Iran lumbering along with their centrifuges over the years, which were started by hacked and donated pieces by Pakistan's Dr. Khan. Everybody knows it. Even I've reported on that. They start their program. They can only, make these centrifuges, go so fast. There's a lot of failure rates. Mossad gets in there with the Stuxnet viruses and, that they created with the American NSA. They sabotage Iran's network by sabotaging products made by the Philips Corporation. Dutch intelligence is in there. All this stuff is sabotaging Iran's nuclear effort while Obama's negotiating. He's starting stuff in Syria, hoping that the Syrian regime collapses that Bashar Assad has. That would weaken Iran while the nuclear negotiations are going on. That was the real reason, folks, that Obama was doing this. But instead of coming out and saying, hey, guess what? We're going to go in there and we're going to try to get rid of Bashar Assad by even sending weapons to former members of Al-Qaeda. As long as they swear in the Quran, they won't attack us, wink, wink. And what we're going to do is, as long as they target him, we're going to give them weapons. And we're going to spend, a couple of $1 billion on this. And then, of course, some of those guys are going to just defect and take the weapons and use them against us. He knew all this was going to happen because anybody with an IQ of over 5 could figure this out. So instead, he announces that they're going to train these mercenaries. They had a safe haven on the other side of the Turkish border. There was the Free Syrian Alliance led by generals who had defected, who were working with the CIA to go march in there and oust Bashar Assad. Nothing even close to that happened. Instead, because he pulls out of Iraq, The Islamic State comes in there, takes over that country as well, because now they've got room to grow and expand. They become the greatest threat in the region, totally dwarf anything Obama is doing. Trump inherits that. He goes to war against ISIS by eliminating a lot of the restrictions, which were outright ridiculous, that Obama and the Democrats have put into place. And then now the Islamic State is, for all practical purposes, defeated. But unfortunately, Trump is making things worse, because now if he does pull out, he's going to let Turkey take over the areas of Syria that the Kurds have fought to conquer, because the Turks, the Iranians, everybody but the Kurds doesn't want to see an independent Kurdistan. They don't want the Kurds to have their own lands back, because part of the territory of these neighboring countries exists because they stole it from the Kurds. Modern-day Turkey is as large as it is because it invaded countries like Armenia and the lands of the Kurds and seized them through, outright invasion under the Ottoman Empire. And this is how Turkey grew. And Turkey doesn't want to give any of that land back. And, of course, Iraq doesn't want to see Kurdistan break away and form its own nation. And what's interesting is Israel supports the Kurds. They support the idea of Kurdish independence, just like the Kurds support the idea of an independent Jewish state. So now Trump is going to pull out. That's what he says. The reality may keep him in there longer, but the bottom line is he's sending a very strong message. You guys are going to have to sort this mess out yourself. We'll explain more after the commercial break.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Eli Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. SIMULTV.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me.
SIMULTV.com, sonny boy.
SIMULTV.com.
SIMULTV.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
SIMULTV.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. SIMULTV.com.
Welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on Cal's Corner Radio Show here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. Once again, my name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host, and the executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. So now we head into the last part of the year of last year, 2018, and of course the final few months. And when there wasn't issues going on with Syria, the Islamic State, Iran pulling out of that agreement, there was pulling out of the Paris Accord. We've talked about that before. I've reported on it before. To briefly review that issue, the Paris Accord was always a joke. It was never serious. Because even if every nation that signed that document, and they bent over backwards to do it and get their photo ops and waste taxpayer money so they could claim their 15 minutes of fame, all the terms of that agreement, according to the very same UN panel for climate change, said it didn't go far enough. In other words, if the global temperature needed to be dropped by 2.5 degrees, and everyone agrees to drop it by 1.5, what's the point? It's like football. It really is that simple. If you need 4 points to win the game, don't bother kicking a field goal. You're only going to get 3. Duh. So, like I reported as a journalist covering this, these guys were going to agree to an agreement that didn't matter because it didn't go far enough. So it wasn't really a cure. It was just to say, hey, we did something. Make ourselves feel good. And worse, a massive shift of money from the West over to Asia, which of course wants to get it because then they don't have to pay things for themselves. I've seen the game played many times over there. In India, yes, we love money from the West. Oh, we can't afford it, so please give it to us. Yeah, you can if you just, stop the black money stuff in your economy, which of course, not coincidentally, Russia, China, and India are the top 3 corrupt countries in the world. You can look it up. India being the most corrupt democracy, of course. All right, so then you have this going on. You've got a trade war with China. You've got Iran. You've got the issue with Taiwan. You've got the climate change issue where Trump is just not going to – he doesn't think climate change is a serious issue. Okay, fine. It is a serious issue. But, of course, the global fight against it has not been serious. And, of course, the alarmist proclamations about it by Al Gore have been way over the top. They have been exaggerations. They've been lies at times. Again, I've written a book exposing them, just like I wrote a book exposing Hillary Clinton's lies as well. And then you had the resurgence of the Democratic Party, right? Because based on all this stuff going on with Trump, combined with the stuff that was going on with Robert Mueller and the, of course, Russians, many individuals started to get indicted because they're guilty. They've pled guilty now. You know who they are. Paul Manafort, guilty. You've had resignations because people were guilty. You had Trump promise when he ran for president that, hey, I'm going to pick the best people, and I will continue to pick the best people. Well, look at the number of people that have quit under Trump of their own volition. And then look at the number of people that have been forced out by either Trump or because they've been busted for something. And then look at the number of people who had to resign because they're guilty of doing something. It's been all over the map. And then look at some of the people he has appointed to some of the positions, like the Secretary of Education. Her only qualification seems to be that she's given some $250 million to the Republican Party over the years. She's married to the founder of Amway, apparently. Good for her. She's a hardcore Democrat, but she has no experience in education at all, and she's head of education. I just don't think that's a good example of picking the best people. And Trump continues to defend blindly, stupidly, to his own discredit, many of the people he appoints and later fires and calls them all kinds of names on Twitter. Well, if you are picking the best people, then why do they last so little time? Why do you continue to break your own records for turnover? Why are about 25% of the jobs still open 2 years later? And at this rate, you just won't fill them by the time you end your first term, if you get a second term. And then, of course, you have the Democrats claiming, oh, here comes a blue wave. Well, it wasn't a blue wave. It was kind of a blue bump. And, when you have 435 seats up for Congress, all of them are up to be turned over, of course you're going to make some gains. It happens historically every 2 years. It's called the midterm turnover. It's so common, that's why they have a term for it. So what did the Democrats get? Well, they retook Congress. Big deal. They can do all they want, and they're going to do whatever they want. They've already announced some of the things they're going to do. And, of course, they're going to go after Trump. They're going to launch at least 17 investigations, apparently, if they're not just talking smack. Who knows with them? But then you have the Senate. The Senate can block anything they do. And as long as the other party, the Republicans in this case, controls the Senate, and Trump, of course, has veto power, and there's no way they're going to get a two-thirds majority to override him probably on any issue, unless it was a pay raise for themselves. It's just not going to happen. So we have what is called divided government. And there are people who think this is an improvement. They're happy with the election results. And I argue that they're happy with them because they haven't thought the whole thing through. This isn't a one-step dance. This is a marathon for at least your life and that of your kids. Whatever election decisions you make today or don't make not only impact you up till the next election, but theoretically for the rest of your life and maybe even your kids. And so now Trump bragged about this economy. Obama said, wait a minute, that was my economy. Just like, I deserve credit for this. Well, there was stuff that Trump did which wasn't relevant to Obama. Obama had nothing to do with it, like the tax cuts, the so-called tax cuts for everybody. They weren't. It was a lie, and now it's come back to haunt them. Economically, things are turning for the worse now. Look at what's happened with Apple. It's not as simple as just China. These companies bought back a lot of their own stock. That was good for them and their investors, but not necessarily the best thing for the economy. And now smartphone sales are flatlining because over half the planet has them. And until they're all 5G, which is the next big upgrade, the next couple of upgrades are just baby steps, let's be blunt. And I'm a big Apple fan. Everybody knows that. But even my iPhone isn't the latest one. I use whatever I think needs to work. So you combine all of this stuff going on with the continuing shrinkage of the middle class, with wages not keeping up with inflation, with rent going up to where you have mass migration occurring on the west coast of the U.S. California is losing more people now than it's gaining. New York, it's happening. It is now also happening up in the Pacific Northwest. It's happening in the state of Washington. It's just beginning. And now you have states like Vermont. They announced that they're going to pay you $10,000 if you want to move to Vermont and telecommute from there. They got it. They're taking applications for that money. This is the kind of stuff that's going on. And now, in the way that this political election has come out with divided government, look at what's happened with Amazon. They're opening a second super mega headquarters in Queens, in New York. And their new representative is the freshman senator, Congresswoman, the youngest person ever to be elected to Congress, Ocasio-Cortez. She is their representative, and she hates capitalism. She's a socialist, practically a communist, if I understand her ramblings correctly. And, of course, she's not a fan of Amazon. And Amazon moving into her hood is going to raise rents like you can't believe, because there's tens of thousands of people who are coming to the hood to work for the richest man in the world, who this week is Jeff Bezos. So this is what's going on. And Trump can say, well, this is just a blip in the road or whatever. The economy will straighten itself out. Not unless the fundamentals are fixed. and neither party has been fixing them. They've been gorging themselves and, getting rich off of them. It's not a coincidence that the people enter Congress or government at one level and come out rich. That's just not a coincidence. You have to work at that, and they do. But what's happening is the middle class is imploding. The rich are getting richer around the world. The divide is getting greater. And this dynamic is not sustainable. And even if it was sustainable, it was never right. So I think that these problems are bigger than any single president to solve. They cannot be solved in a single term. You have to think many years down the road, and not everybody has the same interests or agenda. If you think that China really cares about the U.S. other than as a customer or something like that, you're wrong. The interests of Russia are very different from what is that of the EU or the United States or even South America. Do most Latin countries and their leaders really know what they want for their people? Is that really the case? Is there a single unified vision for Africa? No, there's not. Same in the Middle East. So we've got a long ways to go, and it's beyond Trump. And you can continue to blaming him for what's going on or making things worse, but it really is going to take a global effort to solve this stuff, because all of us have to be involved, and we have ways to communicate and unite and talk and make change. It's a question of whether we take advantage of this opportunity, doing the right things, or whether we choose to do nothing at all and worry about who dies in the latest episode of Game of Thrones. The choice is ours, and hopefully we won't make the wrong choices. We'll see going forward whether that's true. So let's hope that 2019 is much more productive than 2018, and let's hope it is a transformative year for the better and not for the worse. Thanks for joining me this week on Kal's Corner radio show here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. We will see you next week. Thank you.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Eli Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.